I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're going to get started, do it in such a way that you can keep doing this, so that involves not running 10 miles your first run or doing anything too crazy.
Welcome to Baptist Health Talk, a podcast on all things healthcare, powered by Baptist Health South Florida, your trusted source for healthcare prevention and wellness.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Frankie Ruiz. Welcome back to a new episode of Baptist Health Talk, where we answer your most searched questions on trending topics. Today, we're talking about a topic that's rather close to my heart. That's running. As an avid runner and the co-founder of the Lifetime Miami Marathon, I know how exciting and sometimes intimidating it can be to start. Whether you're training for your first 5K or curious about joining a run club, we'll cover the essentials to help you get going the right way. We are joined by Dr. Thomas San Giovanni, orthopedic surgeon at Baptist Health Orthopedic Care. Thank you for being here. Welcome, Dr. San Giovanni.
Thank you, Frankie. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
So look, I mean, you and I are obviously longtime friends and we'll talk quite a bit. And I think you know more or less my story of how I got into running. But, my story involves my dad bringing me into running. And from there, kind of springboarding into organizing races after having a kind of a competitive, career. And now I'm in it probably for all the different reasons I got into it, which is now is a little more social. So I know your interest in running is, from a practicing standpoint, but what would be the safest way for someone to get into running, so forth?
Yeah, certainly. I think with anything that you're starting, something like this that involves a lot of physical activity, where you're going to be challenging your body, you have to start slow and then build gradually. So you almost think of it like a bank account. You don't like just withdraw 26 miles all at once. You need to kind of build up to that. You need to deposit, and your deposits are really your training and working up to it. So you may want to start just with walking, and then, fast walking, then go for a light jog, then start to do short runs. And then you build from there. As we know, like a 10% rule is usually a good guideline, like increasing either your distance 10% each week to build up. And don't forget, rest is important too. So resting for recovery is important too for training.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something really important there, walking. We underestimate that, the power of walking to contribute to running. And people don't know this, or some people may not know this, but the Olympian with the most medals in history, he says the secret to his success was walking. He used to walk 3 to 6 hours. We're talking the 20s and 30s, but he used to walk, 3 to 6 hours. So I'm glad you started with the walking part.
If I could divert for just a second, I've run one marathon. It was the New York Marathon years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I didn't train as well as I should have. I was doing my fellowship at the time. And I know that around the 10th mile of me running, right, I got passed by a fast walker. Right? He was walking like this, and he had his, the big headphones on. And I was thinking to myself, that guy's been walking since the first mile,
there you go.
And he just passed me. So yeah, walking is important.
Yeah, but you only did one, and so
I did one. That's it. Yes, I've done 15 with you in terms of in the medical tent, but one actually myself.
That is true. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I will, kind of share this quick story about equipment, just because I've been guilty of wearing the wrong shoes, and basically, I may have prevented myself from getting a serious injury, but I just chose shoes on the color and the style and so forth. Sure. But I was in the wrong shoe. I was in a shoe that was correcting my gait in a way, or my foot strike. Talk to us about the importance of about wearing proper footwear, and especially for newbie runners.
Yeah, I think it's critical to wear the proper footwear for your foot. And I can say that there's probably no perfect shoe that I can say for everybody broad spectrum. Every foot, is different. It's almost like a different personality. So between your foot, your feet, and somebody else's feet, it could be completely different in terms of the degree of flexibility, their the elasticity, whether it's a we see patterns. So there'll be, people that tend to be more flat-footed or pronators, let's say, may have more of a flexible type of makeup. So their elasticity of their joints and their tendons, they might be more flexible. Whereas those with a high arch may be more rigid. And those factor into how the foot feels in terms of the impact, So like I said, so you kind of end up just having to try different options, see which one feels right for you. Maybe get fitted and have somebody look at and see what might be the right thing for you. Like I said, each of them is a different personality. Unfortunately, when I get to see them, it's like there's a personality disorder going on.
Yeah, no shoe, and I think the shoe selection can be a little daunting. But I guess ultimately you got to feel comfortable in them. But you got any issues, it may very well boil down to the shoe. But you mentioned in passing, but I want to stress this part. You are, let's call this the medical director for the Lifetime Miami Marathon. I was going to say you were because you've been doing it for so long. Yes. 15, right? You said 15 years?
Since 2000 and whatever it was, I think 2013. Or maybe it's from 2011 or 10,
wow.
Something like that.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, and the running community appreciates it because you keep us safe once we get to the finish line, and then during you oversee a large team of medical personnel throughout the course. So thank you for doing that. What other equipment would you recommend for someone getting into running? Is there other equipment?
I think keep it simple. I think wearing let's say the appropriate shirt, like wearing something that can breathe easily. Some of these the newer type patterns of materials I think are good for sweating and everything. Also, especially in Miami, the type of heat that we see on some of these days that we've had the marathon, like either some type of coverage, with either a hat, right? Not everybody likes wearing a hat, but you don't have to. But that's one thing. A lot of people will have something too, like a belt where they kind of have some recovery tools or something that you can have.
Speaking of recovery, is there anything on the recovery side, equipment-wise, that maybe somebody would consider?
I think there's always all these things that are coming out in terms of you mean so
many. I think there's more products now than for recovery than there is for during.
Yeah, I think it's because there's such there's been a lot of, let's say, medical significance to that, and a lot of research that's going on with that. So there's things coming out every week almost, but whether it's certain type of socks or compression socks, or whether it's the various gels that you're running with. So all of those things may make a difference in the end.
Yeah, no, recovery is important because you've got, you may run for maybe an hour a day, but the body then has to deal with that hour for the next 23 hours. Yeah. And if you can aid it in any way, whether it's with some equipment or at the very least rest. But I myself have been injured. I think I've talked to you on a few occasions, but there was one injury that really hit me pretty hard, which is I did too much. Let's call it too much at a race that I shouldn't have necessarily pushed as long as I did. It was actually a race without a finish line, which was crazy. Run as long as you could until your time was up, or in this case, it was a car chasing you, which is crazy. But I ended up with IT band syndrome. What are some common injuries that you see with new runners? Yeah,
I think let's say shin splints, right? We see a lot. Various types of tendonitis, whether it's of the lower extremity off, like the one I kind of see them a lot is Achilles tendonitis, especially with the new runners. But you could also see something with patella tendonitis. But Achilles tendonitis we see a lot. The inner side of the ankle, posterior tibial tendonitis. So tendonitis is, I'd say, shin splints, just due to the impact of the running, and then plantar fasciitis, which is at the bottom of the heel, that people can feel that. Let's say in the morning when they wake up. Yeah. And
you mentioned shin splints. So I guess this transitions well into my follow-up question to injuries. At what point should you kind of let the pain either subside or just deal with it? Sure. And at what point do you have to get checked out by a doctor?
Right. I mean, there's, when you're training and everything, there's always going to be some degree of soreness that you may feel, especially if you push yourself. So, 1 or 2 days of soreness, I mean, that probably goes along with the territory, the game, but when that persists, right? So if you have persistent pain, right?
In the same area, you're saying?
Yeah, persistent pain, same area, maybe it's more localized, swelling, or it seems like be progressively worsening. You start limping. I mean, those are telltale signs that you should stop what you're doing, maybe seek some, medical evaluation, and make sure this is not kind of being carried over into like an overuse type injury. It's not something you may want to just burn through.
Gotcha.
The other thing sometimes we see is stress-related injuries, like stress fractures or something we call stress phenomena or stress reaction. So those are things that we see too in the training process.
Yeah, as a coach, I'm always trying to motivate people to get off the couch, which obviously is what we're talking about here.
Right.
The first thing they'll tell me is I've got bad knees. I think I have shin splints, and oftentimes I laugh about it. I'm just like, I just think you just never you haven't used your body in a while, so I think you're feeling some weird things.
So some overuse is probably due to prolonged underuse, right? So let's put
overuse
it that way. So it could be maybe an underuse injury, promoted by that. But
I often laugh because I'm like, there's no way that you already have shin splints. You just started yesterday.
Well, they got shin splints when they got off the couch.
That's maybe it too. Maybe too. No, but I do think that there's this misconception that I gotta go through all this pain. No, I mean, if there's an issue, there may be an underlying issue that was unrelated to the running that you just started doing. It may be something, something you may have had 10, 15, 20 years ago as well.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly, and there could be just an easy solution to that too. It's just a matter of recognizing something early and making whatever intervention or change that you need to so that just doesn't keep carrying on.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. I've seen this big spike in actually Baptist Health run clubs, and it's been insane after COVID and everyone getting healthy after the pandemic, and I think that was kind of like this built up demand that now we have it, and like people are sticking with running. Sure. Have you seen a spike of new runners coming into your office? Yes,
I have, and I think it's a lot of this has to do with the popularity of it. You've made it too popular. I got to retire someday, Frankie. But you did. You made running too popular here in Miami. But yes. Yeah, when you see these activity that becomes popular and involves like a lot of impact loading, I've been seeing a spike. It's like pickleball. Where did pickleball come from? All of a sudden, we start seeing people come in with pickleball injuries with their Achilles. So it's due to the popularity. We're starting to see that spike.
Yeah, well, thank you for giving me the credit, but I think it's a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, maybe Miami, I think has been a little bit ahead of the curve. We've been actually Baptist Health has been involved with the run clubs before. I want to say this before running was cool. Now it's I guess it's there, but if they use the word cool these days, but it's been a lot of young people. There's been obviously an increase in Gen Z, and just basically this tremendous popularity that's exploded because of social media. So I was just curious. I'm like, man, if right now it'd be great to be an orthopedic surgeon, but no, hopefully people do start easy, like you said. And
I'd rather see them not in the office. I'd rather actually see them like running healthy. You know what I mean? But certainly. No.
For sure. If you are going out,
and that's a truthful statement too. I don't need the extra work, believe me.
No, for sure. If you are going to a run club for the first time, I tell folks, I'm like, the run club might be, filled with veteran runners, or they run by mileage. Maybe consider running, a certain amount of time versus just throwing yourself into, into I don't know, 5 miles or whatever that run club might be doing that night. So. I'm a cross country coach. I think you know that. I've sent a few athletes,
and a very good one too,
your way. Thank you. There's I have this message constantly to my runners that we're intentional about our training, that we're not just doing it necessarily to to do a marathon, or, you know, like some people get off the couch and they're like, all right, I'm only a runner if I do this.
Right.
You know, so I struggle sometimes because people are like, no, like you mentioned, you ran a marathon. So I want to be clear to people that just because you haven't yet accomplished a marathon or a half marathon, you know, you're a runner. It just, there's no definition of when you cross a certain, you know, distance or whatnot. So I think maybe from your medical standpoint, what's the importance of following some sort of training program, or you know, keeping it in a way that you are following some advice?
Yeah, I think I think it's very important, right, to do that. And you know, like if you stay kind of disciplined and consistent with something, you know, I think that's a way that you could really truly avoid a lot of the injuries. Yeah. A lot of the injuries we see are like it's too much too fast, right? It may be that, it could be like, once again, you mentioned it, like maybe improper shoe wear. There could be nutritional aspects. Sure. People are not allowing enough time for recovery. They're not resting. They're not sleeping. You know, there's a lot of things. They try to fit everything in their busy day, right? And I think if you were able to better schedule yourself, almost like, this is the time I'm taking for myself, right? And that you plan your week, okay, and do that. I think that's going to help you in the long run to find that time. You know, if you make that time for yourself. So, you know, I'm guilty of it more than anybody else, about not finding the time to do things. But I think if you're going to be planning to do this, I think it's important to plan it out like that. So
speaking of time, on you know, we talked a little bit about the importance of finding some sort of training program or some expert guidance and stuff. Sometimes we jump out of our car and we just want to start the run. Right. Is there a you know, maybe some advice you'd give folks on the importance of a warm up for injury prevention?
Yeah, definitely. I think you want to do some type of warm up, like some type of, let's say, a dynamic warm up where you're just doing certain movement patterns. Do like a little light run or light jog or something, just to kind of get the blood flowing. And what that does is it kind of heats your body up, right? It makes your tissues, like your muscles and everything, and your tendons and everything a lot more elastic, right? And that could certainly help prevent, let's say, injury. So it's like warming up your oven. You don't just stick the turkey in there, right, and expect it, you know, a frozen turkey. You want to warm things up. And so I think it helps with the blood flow, helps with recovery too. And I think after a run, you want to stretch. So you might want to do more of a gradual static stretch. You know, you always used to be taught to stretch everything beforehand. Now we're being taught that maybe doing some type of dynamic warm up is important. Stretching afterwards is important for, let's say, keeping your flexibility and not contracting the muscles.
Right. Yeah. And I think now there's always talk about muscle stiffness and so forth. So there you need to be a little more responsive rather than just completely flexible.
So taking that time is important. Like, so just, you know, even if it's just a few minutes to do before you run.
So switching topics to hydration, because for the Lifetime Miami Marathon participants, that's a big thing that you do. You know, you're not necessarily seeing a lot of chronic injuries and so forth. I mean, you might have a sprained ankle here and there for, you know, those kinds of things, but a lot of it is hydration. A lot of it is overheating and so forth. You want to sort of talk a little bit about hydrating before a run or during even, and the importance of that.
Yeah. Hydration is like the oil in your car. Yeah, like if you don't have the oil in it, right, you're going to overheat and the engine's going to, you know, break down. So your body's going to break down. So especially in Miami, where we have, like, you know, the heat index can be pretty high in some of the days that we've had the marathon. So the hydration is going to help you in terms of like the lubrication of your joints, the flexibility of your tendons, right? It's going to help you with recovery as well. Like one of the things we see the most is like muscle cramping, right? Muscle fatigue. We see there are some people, you know, that can get heat stroke, right? Or heat illness, especially here in Miami. So that's really important. And there's some rare, you know, conditions called rhabdomyolysis that people can get that can actually affect their kidneys if they're not hydrated. So those hydration through the race is very important in a balanced way. You're trying to replace your electrolytes and everything like that.
So, I can tell you from a Miami standpoint, like the idea of hydration has to be part of your training. There's no question about it. So I'm glad you addressed that. Look, I think we all know AI is here. AI is making its way into the running world in a huge way. There's coaching right now. We talk about experts giving you advice on training and so forth, but it's making its way, right? Like there's training programs now on an app that's all AI generated. And I think it's getting a little better. I still think the importance of having human interpretation and understanding how you really feel. But are there any tools you've seen, whether it's gait analysis, imaging software, anything, and maybe something to help you diagnose or tailor some of this care for the runners that you've seen out there?
Well, I know there is stuff, and like I said, it's coming. There's a wave coming that's even, it's going to be almost like a tidal wave. But like just all this gait analysis with motion analysis that you can even do with your smartphone with some of these apps can really, I think it's very helpful. I do agree that you need some type of something to oversee that as well. But it can give you like an idea of whether there's if you're striking the ground differently, if there's some imbalance there, and maybe by picking that out, you might be able to help prevent some type of overuse type injury, or overload type injury. So I think those apps are going to probably get better and better. Yeah. So exciting. They're there. Yeah.
It's exciting. I mean, I just
don't want to name a few of them, but you can hop on them and take a look at them. They're pretty fascinating.
Yeah, no, I think those apps are going to be great tools. Hopefully, people don't follow them blindly. That they still, rely on their medical folks and they rely on coaches as well. I think the overall message here from all of us obviously is to start easy and start in a manner in which it's sustainable. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you're going to get started, do it in such a way that you can keep doing this, so that involves not running 10 miles your first run or doing anything too crazy. I also think that the message here is it's never too late to start. Just like we talked about young people starting, we definitely have to talk to, to folks that think, I'm past it. Is there some, I guess we keep reinforcing it, but are there any tips on that front?
Well, like you said, like if you run if you run one of these, you're a runner, right? It doesn't even have to be a full marathon. I mean, it could be a half marathon. It could be even just a 5K, right? I think we've seen, I don't know what the age of the oldest runner is of the marathon.
Miami, we're well over 85, 86 years old. Yeah.
I remember him crossing the finish line and he's run every year or something like that. So it's never too late. Just do it. Like I said, start slow. If you haven't been doing it, build up, use some common sense, right? And have fun.
That's important. Having fun, starting easy, and definitely don't think it's ever too late, for sure. All right, so this has been a great conversation. Thank you for sharing this insight with our audience. Remember, viewers, be sure to hit that subscribe button on our channel here to keep up with the latest health and wellness information and tips from our experts. Thanks for watching.
Find additional valuable health and wellness information on our resource blog at baptisthealth.net/news. And be sure to interact with us on our social media channels for live and upcoming events. Baptist Health Talk is brought to you by Baptist Health, the warmer side of care.